my wife Patricia took my wallet, my ID, and left me stranded 30 miles from home at a train station. I was about to start walking when suddenly a blind man sitting on a bench said, "Pretend you're my son. My private driver will be here in 5 minutes, and your wife is going to regret leaving you next to the richest businessman in this city." I know it sounds impossible. I know it sounds like one of those stories you hear and think must be fake. But I swear on everything I love that every word I'm about to tell you is true. And if you give me just a few minutes, you'll understand how that moment changed my life forever. My name is Richard Hawkins. I'm 55 years old, Vietnam veteran, and until that cursed day, I thought I knew what pain was. 28 years of marriage to Patricia Hawkins. 28 years working my way up from warehouse floor to operations manager. Getting up before dawn, coming home with calloused hands and a sore back, all to give her a decent life, all to hear her say it was never enough. But that Saturday morning, everything exploded. We had traveled upstate to visit a cousin of hers, 2 hours on a bus with Patricia glued to her phone, smiling at messages she never showed me, typing things she never shared with me. I stared out the window, pretending not to see the obvious, because sometimes silence hurts less than the truth. When we arrived at that small train station, lost in the middle of nowhere, she wanted to buy some local sweets at a shop across the square. I told her I'd rather wait for her sitting on a bench. My knees just can't take it like they used to, after all those years on warehouse floors and jungle marches in Vietnam. That's where it all started. Sitting again, Richard. Her voice cracked like a whip. You're always tired. You always have some excuse. You know what? I'm sick of it. Sick of living with an old man with no ambition, no money, and nothing to offer me but mediocrity. The people around us started to stare. I felt shame burn my face. "Patricia, please, let's not do this here," I whispered, trying to calm her down. "Here? Not here, Richard." "Then where? In our miserable house? In that apartment you can't even finish paying for?" She laughed bitterly. "Look around you. Look where we are. In a filthy station in a forgotten town because we can't even afford to travel like normal people." Every word was a direct blow to my chest. I tried to touch her arm, but she pulled away as if I had burned her. "Don't touch me. I don't want you to ever touch me again." The silence that followed was worse than the screams. Patricia took a deep breath, looked at her phone, that damn phone she was always looking at, and then looked at me with eyes I no longer recognized. Cold, empty eyes. "You know what, Richard? It's over. I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life tied to a failure." She opened her purse, took out my wallet and my ID, and dropped them on the wooden bench next to me. But before I could react, she snatched them back up. "Better yet, I'll keep these. After all, what do you need them for out here?" "Patricia, what are you doing?" My voice came out broken, almost a plea. "I'm leaving you, Richard, right here, right now. You can walk back home if you want, or you can stay here forever. I don't care." She turned and walked toward where the bus that brought us was parked. The driver was still there having a coffee. I watched her get on, say something to him, and the bus started without me, leaving me there in the middle of nowhere, without a single dollar in my pocket, without identification, without anything. I stood paralyzed, watching the bus disappear down the dusty road. The sun beat down hard on my head. The station was almost empty. A few street vendors, a woman with 2 children, and an old man sitting on the bench opposite me, wearing dark glasses and holding a white cane. A blind man. I felt the world crumble beneath my feet. 30 miles to my house, 30 miles under the sun, without water, without money, without anything. At 55 years old, with shattered knees and a heart broken in 1,000 pieces, I sat on the bench, buried my face in my hands, and for the first time in decades, I cried. I cried from rage, from helplessness, from shame. How had I gotten here? At what point had my life become this? I'd served my country in Vietnam. I'd worked honest jobs for 30 years. I'd been faithful to a woman who apparently had been planning this moment for who knows how long. And then I heard a voice next to me, soft but firm. "Excuse me, young man." I lifted my head. The blind man was turning his face toward me, as if he could see me through those dark glasses. "Are you talking to me?" I asked clumsily, wiping away my tears. "Yes, you. I heard everything, and I'm very sorry for what just happened to you." He paused and then smiled in a strange way. But I think I can help you. I didn't understand. Help me? Sir, I don't want to bother you. Thank you, but I'll be fine. No, you won't be fine. His voice turned serious. But you will be if you listen to me. I need you to pretend something for me, just for a few minutes. I stayed silent, confused. The old man leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Pretend you're my son. My private driver will be here in 5 minutes, and your wife is going to regret leaving you next to the richest businessman in this city." I stared at him like he was crazy. Pretend to be his son? The richest businessman in the city? This had to be a joke, or worse, some kind of scam. But something in that man's voice, something in the calm way he spoke, made me hesitate. "Sir, I don't understand. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." The old man smiled, that strange smile, as if he knew something I didn't. "Because I know exactly what it feels like to be alone, abandoned, with no one to lend you a hand. And because I can." He adjusted his dark glasses. "My name is Charles Brennan. And if that last name sounds familiar, it's because you've probably heard of me. Charles Brennan. The name hit me like a lightning bolt. Of course I knew it. Everyone in the region knew that name. Owner of the largest food processing plant in the state, several hotels, and land that stretched for miles. A man whose fortune was estimated at exactly $300 million. And he was here, sitting next to me in a forgotten train station. Mr. Brennan, I can't. This doesn't make any sense. It makes all the sense in the world, Richard. He said my name even though I had never told him. I heard your wife call you. I heard every word she said to you. And let me tell you something. A woman who abandons her husband like that, without mercy, without dignity, deserves to see what she just lost." My heart was pounding. I didn't know if it was fear, hope, or just the adrenaline from the absurdity of the situation. "But why would you do this for me?" Charles sighed, and for a moment, his face filled with a deep sadness. "Because 30 years ago, my only son died in Desert Storm. He was 25 years old and had his whole life ahead of him. And since that day, I've lived with an emptiness that nothing can fill." He paused. "My driver will be here in a few minutes. When he arrives, just play along. Call me Dad. Act like you've been waiting for me, and believe me when I say, your life is about to change." Before I could answer, I heard the sound of an engine approaching. A black, gleaming BMW SUV pulled into the station's parking lot. The tinted windows reflected the sun like mirrors. The vehicle stopped right in front of us, and a man in a suit got out quickly. "Mr. Brennan, sorry for the delay. The traffic on the highway was complicated. Don't worry, Trevor, you're right on time." Charles extended his hand toward me. "Help me up, son." The word son froze me for a second, but something inside me, maybe desperation, maybe curiosity, or maybe just the desire for Patricia to see she had been wrong, made me react. I took his hand and helped him to his feet. "Trevor, I'd like you to meet Richard. He's my son." The driver looked at me with obvious surprise, but quickly composed himself. He was a professional, trained not to ask uncomfortable questions. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Richard." "The pleasure is mine," I replied, my voice trembling. Charles leaned on my arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We walked to the SUV, and Trevor opened the back door for us. The interior was cream-colored leather with wood accents and a built-in television screen. It smelled like a new car, like money, like a world that had never been mine. Just as I was about to get in, I heard a shout in the distance. "Richard! Richard, wait!" I turned, and there she was. Patricia running toward us from the sweet shop, a bag in her hand and her eyes wide. She had seen everything. She had seen the SUV. She had seen Charles. She had seen how I was being treated with respect, as if I were someone important. She stopped a few feet from us, panting, her face filled with confusion. "Richard, what's happening? Who is this man?" Charles turned his face toward where Patricia's voice was coming from, though he couldn't see her. He smiled with a calmness that chilled me to the bone. "Excuse me, madam, but I believe you're mistaken. My son doesn't have time to chat with strangers. We have an important family dinner waiting for us at home." "Your son?" Patricia looked at me as if I had gone insane. "Richard, what is this man talking about? What is all this?" For the first time in 28 years, I felt something I had never felt in front of my wife. Power. Control. The tables had turned, and I wasn't on the losing side. Patricia, I think you made it very clear a few minutes ago that you wanted nothing more to do with me. So please don't make this any harder. But she stammered, searching for words. I was just angry. You know how I get. I didn't mean it. Of course you meant it. My voice came out firm, without a tremor. You meant every word you said. And you know what? It's okay. Because you're right. I do deserve something better. Charles squeezed my arm slightly as if giving me silent support. Son, let's go. Helen is waiting for us for lunch. He turned to Trevor. Please take us home. I got into the SUV. Charles got in after me. Trevor closed the door, and the sound was like the closing of a chapter of my life. Through the tinted window, I saw Patricia standing there, her mouth open, the bag of sweets dangling from her hand, watching us drive away. The SUV pulled away smoothly. The air conditioning was perfect. Classical music played softly from the speakers. And there I was, sitting next to a blind millionaire who had just changed my destiny in a matter of minutes. Are you okay? Charles asked without looking at me. I don't know. I still don't understand what just happened. What just happened, Richard, is that you taught your wife a lesson she will never forget. She saw that the man she abandoned like trash has more value than she ever imagined. He paused. But this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Charles smiled again. That smile that hid secrets. I mean that if you really want to change your life, if you really want that woman to regret ever leaving you, you need to stay with me for a while. You need to be my son. Not just for a moment, but for long enough for everyone to believe it, including her. The drive to Charles's mansion took 40 minutes. My mind kept replaying the scene over and over. Patricia's face when she saw me get into that SUV. The confusion in her eyes. The instant regret. 28 years of putting up with her scorn, her constant complaints, her way of making me feel small, and it only took 5 minutes for everything to be reversed. The SUV turned off the main highway and onto a private road lined with ancient trees. In the distance, I began to see a huge colonial-style building with white walls and a red tile roof. There were immense gardens, water fountains, and a wrought iron gate that opened automatically as we approached. Welcome to your new home, Richard, Charles said calmly. We entered the house, and my eyes couldn't take in everything I was seeing. The foyer was enormous, with Italian marble floors, a hand-carved wooden staircase, and a crystal chandelier that must have cost more than my entire apartment. A woman in her 50s, dressed in an impeccable uniform, appeared from one of the side doors. Her face showed surprise when she saw me, but she quickly masked it with a professional smile. Mr. Brennan, it's good to see you. Do you need anything? Yes, Helen. I'd like to introduce you to Richard. He's my son. He'll be living with us from now on. Helen looked at me with wide eyes but said nothing. She just nodded. Of course, Mr. Brennan. I'll prepare everything immediately. Will the young man be dining with you? Of course. Prepare something special, Helen. Today is an important day for this family. Helen hurried away, and Charles guided me to a huge living room with large windows overlooking the garden. He pointed to one of the sofas. Sit down, Richard. We need to talk. I sat, feeling completely out of place. Charles sat across from me and took off his dark glasses. His blind eyes looked at me without seeing, but somehow I felt he could see more of me than anyone with perfect sight. I know you have many questions, and they are all valid. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. 30 years ago, my son Michael died in Desert Storm. He was 25 years old, newly married, and had his whole life ahead of him. From that day on, my wife was never the same. She died 5 years later, more from sadness than from any illness. And I was left alone. His voice cracked slightly. Since then, I've lived in this enormous house surrounded by employees, business partners, people who only seek me out for my money, but no, one who truly cares about me. No one to call me dad. No one to make me feel like my life has meaning beyond the numbers in my bank account. He paused. When I heard you at that station today, when I heard how your wife humiliated you, abandoned you, treated you as if you were worthless, something inside me broke. Because I know what loneliness is, Richard, and I know what it feels like when your life no longer has a purpose. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Mr. Charles, I don't know what to say. This is too much. I'm not your son. Don't say that. Don't you ever say you don't deserve anything. His voice became firm. You worked your entire life to give that woman a decent life. You served your country in Vietnam. You sacrificed your health, your youth, your happiness, and she repaid you with contempt. Charles leaned forward. I have a proposal for you, Richard. Stay with me for the next 6 months. Let me teach you about my businesses. Learn how to run a company, and in return, I only ask for one thing. Keep me company, call me Dad, and make me feel that my life still has meaning. My heart was pounding. And what about my wife? My old life? Your wife abandoned you, Richard. She made that decision. And as for your old life, you can go back to it whenever you want. But I guarantee that after 6 months here, you won't want to go back because you'll discover that you deserve so much more than what she made you believe. Charles held out his hand to me. What do you say, son? Do you accept being part of my family? I looked at his outstretched hand. I thought about my small apartment, my job, about Patricia returning home after leaving me stranded. And then I thought about her face when she saw me get into that SUV. I took his hand. I accept. Dad. Charles smiled, a huge, genuine smile. Thank you, son. Thank you for giving my life meaning again. We had dinner that evening in an enormous dining room with a solid wood table. Helen had prepared roast chicken, roasted, vegetables, imported red wine. Every bite tasted different, better, as if the food knew my life had changed. Tomorrow, I'm going to call my lawyer, Charles said suddenly. We're going to start the legal process to make you my official heir. But first, you need to understand the business. For the next 6 months, you'll learn everything about Brennan Enterprises, food processing, hotels, real estate investments, everything. I almost choked on my wine. What? No, Mr. Charles. Dad, that's too much. Of course you can. And of course you will. Because if not for you, then for whom? I'd rather give it to someone who will value it, someone who will honor my name. But there's something you need to know, Charles continued, his tone more serious. Your wife is going to come back. She's going to try to get you back. She'll say she regrets it, that she made a mistake, that she loves you. And when she does, you'll have to decide whether to believe her or not. I thought of Patricia, of her eyes when she saw me leave. I don't think she'll be back, Dad. She made it very clear what she thinks of me. Charles shook his head. Oh, she'll be back. Because now you're the son of the richest man in town. And money, Richard, has a very special way of changing people's hearts. Charles was right. It wasn't even 2 days later when my phone started ringing. Patricia, one call after another. Text messages, voicemails. I ignored them all at first, but her insistence was overwhelming. Finally, on the third night, I answered. Richard, my God, you finally answered. I've been calling you non-stop. Where are you? What is all this? Who was that man? Her voice sounded desperate, almost hysterical, very different from the cold woman who had abandoned me at that station. Patricia, I think you were very clear on Saturday. You said you didn't want to be with me anymore, that I was a failure. Richard, I was upset. You know how I get when I lose my temper. I didn't mean it. Come home, please. We can talk. We can fix this? I stayed silent, looking around my new room. It was 3 times the size of our old bedroom. It had a private bathroom with a jacuzzi, a walk-in closet, and a king-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than our old mattress. I'm not coming back, Patricia. What? What are you talking about, Richard? This is your home. Your life is here. You can't just leave like this. I can, and I did. You left me with nothing in the middle of nowhere. And you know what? It was the best thing you could have ever done for me. Richard, that old man, who is he? Why did you say you were his son? What's really going on? That's not your business, Patricia. Not anymore. Not my business. I'm your wife, Richard. I have a right to know where you are and who you're with. You're my wife on paper, nothing more. And soon, not even that. My lawyer will be in touch with you about the divorce proceedings. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was soft, manipulative, the voice she used when she wanted to get something. Richard, honey, don't talk like that. We're a family. 28 years together can't be thrown away over a silly argument. Please, just tell me where you are. I'll come get you, and we can talk calmly. No, Patricia, this is over, and believe me when I say I'm going to be much better off without you. I hung up before she could reply. My hands were shaking. 28 years of marriage ended in a 3-minute phone call, but I didn't feel sadness. I felt liberation. The following months were the most transformative of my life. Charles taught me about his business empire every morning: food processing plants that exported to 12 countries, 3 luxury hotels, several commercial properties, and stocks in technology and energy companies. His fortune was exactly $300 million. I absorbed everything like a sponge, discovering I had a mind for numbers and strategy that I had never been able to develop loading boxes in warehouses. The Vietnam. Training had taught me tactical thinking, and now I was applying those same skills to business operations. But the real lesson came 3 months later when Charles's private investigator delivered a report that changed everything. "Richard," Charles said, handing me the folder, "there's something you need to know about Patricia. She's been having an affair with your former supervisor for the past 5 years." The room spun around me. 5 years. While I was working overtime, trying to provide for her, she was betraying me with my own boss. The mysterious text messages, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd started treating me with such contempt. It all made sense now. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because I needed proof first. And now we have it. Phone records, hotel receipts, everything." "This wasn't a spontaneous decision at the train station, Richard. She'd been planning to leave you for months." A week later, I received legal papers. Patricia had hired lawyers and was suing for alimony, division of assets, and compensation for emotional distress. She was asking for $50,000 a month and half of any property I acquired during our marriage, including my inheritance from Charles. Bradley Norton, Charles's lawyer, almost laughed when he read the documents. "This has no legal basis. She abandoned you and committed adultery. There are witnesses, and any inheritance you receive from Mr. Brennan is after the separation." Charles banged his cane on the floor. "We are not settling for 1 cent. Bradley, I want you to counterattack with everything. Adultery, abandonment, fraud." The preliminary hearing was 6 weeks later. I arrived at the courthouse with Charles, Bradley, and a team of lawyers. Patricia was there, dressed like a victim, trying to look vulnerable. Next to her was my sister Diana, who had apparently been helping Patricia hide assets as her financial advisor. When Bradley presented the evidence, security footage from Charles's mansion, documented proof of the 5-year affair, financial records showing Patricia's hidden accounts, the judge's expression grew stern. "Mrs. Patricia, you have committed adultery, abandoned your husband, and filed false claims under oath. That is perjury. Furthermore, Miss Diana, as a financial advisor who helped hide marital assets, you face professional sanctions." Patricia's face went white. Diana looked terrified. "I am dismissing all of Mrs. Patricia's claims. She will receive no alimony or compensation. The divorce is granted based on adultery and abandonment." We left the courthouse victorious. Patricia tried to approach me one last time, but Charles stepped between us. "Stay away from my son," he said firmly. "You've caused enough damage." Today, 18 months after that day at the train station, I am the CEO of Brennan Enterprises. Charles officially made me his successor after I proved I could handle the responsibility. The 6-month learning period became the foundation for everything that followed. I never heard from Patricia again. Last I heard, she was working as a cashier, living in a small apartment. Diana lost her financial advisor license and had to start over in a different career. A month ago, I went back to that train station. I sat on the same bench where my life changed forever. A young man was there, looking defeated, holding his head in his hands. I walked over and handed him my business card. "If you ever need help, a job, or just someone to listen, call me anytime." He looked up with tears in his eyes and took the card. That's how you build a legacy, not just with money, but with compassion. Sometimes the worst betrayals are the greatest blessings in disguise, and sometimes finding your true family means losing everything else first. Today, I am Richard Brennan, son, businessman, and finally a man at peace with himself. And it all began the day a blind man whispered to me, "Pretend you're my son." Sometimes God closes a door not to punish you, but to redirect you toward the blessing you never knew you deserved. And the people who abandoned you become the very catalyst for your greatest transformation. The difference between a victim and a victor isn't what happens to you, but how you choose to respond when life gives you a second chance. And real family isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you when everyone else walks away.